All right, back at it. Another edition of the More To It podcast. The tone is a little different than our other ones. Was not expecting to do this type of podcast, but here we are. This is kind of exactly about 24 hours after the news came out yesterday of the Big Ten and the Pac-12 joining forces. That was no surprise. The Big Ten and Pac-12 are, in cahoots, obviously with the Rose Bowl, and they'll kind of, Pac-12 had to kind of follow what the Big Ten's doing with the cancellation of fall sports and obviously football. And thought about doing this by myself last night. I was very, very frustrated, pissed, still am. I thought I'd give myself 24 hours, and I'm still frustrated and pissed. But I thought I would call in my man, Jason Peter from the bullpen to join me today, and we can get this thing fired up today.
Always good to sleep on it, right?
I try, yeah. I thought it would help, and it's not. And it didn't.
Yeah, this is crazy. I mean, it's crazy times, and even as we got closer and closer, and you'd hear this about the COVID or what was happening, maybe with the Big Ten, and you never ever really thought that it would come to a point where they say, that's it, no more football this year.
Yeah, I have told. I mean, even when the reports came out this weekend about them canceling, I just thought that it can't happen. I just thought it can't happen. I've told people. I mean, back when all the craziness started in March, and of course, never thought NCAA basketball tournament would get shut down. Did, and many other events and spring sports and the NBA, and Major League Baseball, you name it. And I always, as we got closer and they say, hey, students are going to be allowed on campus. Sweet, we're going to play football.
Right.
Because that's the first hurdle.
Right.
And I thought college football is too big to fail. There's too much of an economic impact, not only for the Big Ten, but for every Power 5 school, and for, let's be honest, the FCS schools who get paid millions of dollars to come play the Power 5 schools. Right. I thought it was just too big to fail. Even recognizing the risk of COVID, coronavirus, however you want to call it. And even up to when we heard rumors, votes, sources, I just said, I don't see it. Like I'm an optimist at heart. I am. I always think like they're gonna, because we have so much more.
They'll find a way.
They're gonna find a way.
Yeah.
Because we have so much more information than we did back in March. I get the things that happened in March. We had no idea what we were dealing with yet.
But don't you think they just sat on their ass? And it was like 2 months ago they figured, you know what, in 2 months they'll have this thing figured out, or they'll have a
vaccine.
Vaccine.
You're right.
And I just think like that time went by, and then before you know it, it's like teams are starting practice now, and we need to do something.
Right. Well, that's my biggest thing is what have they been doing for the last 5 months? Have they
nothing?
They said our protocols for travel and contact tracing, and we need better testing. It's like, well, what the hell? I mean, these universities have been doing a phenomenal job. Nebraska, you go through Michigan, Nebraska, they've been doing a phenomenal job and been using their medical doctors. Yeah. Nebraska's done a great job using UNMC. And everyone's gone through all these things that has us in control.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they've been doing these things for months.
Yeah.
And just to pull the rug from it and not be able and not try.
Right.
Give it something or buy yourself some more time is just so puzzling to me. And nothing makes sense. I mean, this whole situation, like 2 + 2 does not equal 4 in my mind anymore. Right. This whole ordeal, and like you can't bullshit a bullshitter here. You can't. Kevin Warren can't tell me anything anymore. Like he is so full of it. Like that you can't come out with a schedule, let kids go to practice, and completely flip it in 6 days and say, hey, we're not going to do this. Like,
why put the schedule out? What honestly had changed in those 6 days? Like,
nothing.
The fact
Absolutely
that you
nothing.
had people create a schedule for all 14 teams, or however we got it.
ADs have been on Zoom, like 110 different Zoom calls to try to work this out, to make it work.
Yeah. It's mind-boggling.
It's puzzling
really
because, I mean, you look at it all, and like my initial reaction when this came out 24 hours ago was, I mean, I was sick. I mean, because as a Nebraskan who's grown up, I'll be 37 in less than a week. This will be potentially, I know things could still be in the works here as we speak, but potentially the first fall without Nebraska football that you've ever experienced, I've ever experienced. And we know growing up, I mean, a fall Saturday in Lincoln and just in general Nebraska it's a holiday.
Yeah.
It's a special day. The energy, you can feel it. Yeah. The optimism, whether you're going to play Ohio State, they're 7 touchdowns better than you, but you still have the optimism that, you know what, today's our day.
Yep.
And people are fired up.
Yep.
They're excited. The energy, and that's not going to be here. And then you look at it economically from people who make so much money off the 7 Saturdays that they're not going to get the opportunity anymore. The people who work at these places, it's one thing for the owners, but it's one thing again now for those employees who know they pay for half their year's tuition.
Oh yeah.
Off of those 7 Saturdays.
Yeah. I mean, Lincoln downtown, along with Ann Arbor and Columbus and probably maybe some of the smaller Purdue and Indiana, those towns, those little cities, they're not going to be the same. Come the 2021 season, they will look different. Same with Lincoln. There's going to be restaurants, there's going to be bars, there's going to be all these places that budget their entire year, around Nebraska football, the hiring of staff and everything else, and they're just not going to make it.
No.
They're just not going to make it, and hearing the bullshit come out of Kevin Warren's mouth, and then when his history too, when he was in Minnesota when all that Adrian Peterson stuff was happening, and the way that he handled all that stuff, it was just really poorly done. And just watching him do that interview yesterday kind of made me sick to my stomach. Like, now is a time where you got to be somewhat transparent,
right?
You got to let people know what's happening, right? Especially when it's something that involves them, right. Not just them financially, not just them their time, but their health as well. So now is the time to let people see exactly what you're dealing with, and the way that just watching him on BTN and seeing him sidestep the Scott Frost questions, and it was like, dude, this is the guy that it makes you realize and appreciate what Jim Delaney, what he did, because this guy, it's like, do you really want this guy leading the conference, for the next 5-10 years?
When you make this hard of a call and this tough a decision, you have to be able to answer all the tough questions, and he did not do that. He ran around them like a little you-know-what.
Yeah.
You got to be prepared to answer those questions, and he didn't. And they tried, and Dave Rebson did a great job in presenting those questions. He was put in a tough situation. Because what's hurting too is now the Big Ten net with that TV. Like, what are those guys going to do in the fall? Like, I mean,
I know.
I mean, it's you want to start the economic thing, and not only for the impact to Nebraska, to Lincoln, but what's crazy is I know. We all know what the Big Ten network money provided to every university, right. And we know that money cannot be coming into these universities if there's no fall sports. And let's be honest, there's a good chance basketball is no guaranteed anymore.
I would think that probably the winter sports are probably at risk of being canceled as well too.
So if we know, this is completely puzzling to me, and that's why I want answers. Like, this does not make sense to me, because why would you want to shut something down where you're guaranteeing yourself $52 million?
At least try, right? At least try. Maybe you can get some of the money.
Right.
Maybe it's not all of it, but
some is better than nothing.
Yeah, I know. And it's not like the past few months, ever since this pandemic has kind of started, it's not like there's been just an influx and large amounts of money that have come into business. I mean, it's been a struggle for the last 3 months. So to then all of a sudden have it just completely shut down, and it seemed these kids, these coaches, man, they've been battling and working their asses off. I think you at least owe it as the commissioner to explore all avenues and wait until the last possible minute before you're going to make that kind of decision where you completely pull the rug out from underneath them. It's just.
It was half-assed.
Yeah, I think so.
It was disingenuous, half-assed, and let's be honest, I don't even know if they really wanted to play football.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I think Jim Delaney was able to build the Big Ten brand into we're the one that everyone looks to, even with the success that the SEC had over the years with Alabama winning all these championships and Florida, and it seemed like the national championship had a permanent stay down in SEC country. Even with the success that they had down there, it seemed like Jim Delaney was still able to create this Big Ten where everybody looked to the Big Ten for answers. Like, what's the Big Ten going to do? They're the one who sets the bar. They're the one who, kind of decides what's right, what's wrong. And in a matter of, an instant, Big Ten's a joke, it looks like.
It's.
And the way that then they're talking about the Pac-10 and how they're like hand in hand. I mean, that relation, there's got to be some separation there. I know you have it with the Rose Bowl, but enough is enough. Do you know what I mean? Who cares what they're doing? We need to worry about our schools and what's best for our schools. And just hearing, some of it between the Pac-12 and the Big Ten, it was, and then seeing some of the, Barry Alvarez, a Nebraska guy, get on, wearing his Wisconsin gear and talking, towing that company line, talking about, backing up everything that Kevin Warren had said. And it's like, really? Mm-hmm. I mean, you're a football guy, Barry. What those kids and those coaches have been trying to do. So it's surprising, seeing some of that and some of the people, what they've said. But, who knows? I'm sure Kevin Warren made some personal calls to those guys and probably asked for favors, hey, back me on this. Otherwise, it's, shit's really going to hit the fan.
Yeah, I just don't, it's just so frustrating. I mean, if you are really concerned about player safety, and this is what really, and I've mentioned this to many, many people, and they're like, well, the risk and the safety. I go, you know what? The game of football is the riskiest sport other than maybe NASCAR, right? Potentially. I mean, although, NASCAR, it's like you get a car, but I mean, a mini car crash is happening on the football field every play.
I'm more worried about breaking my neck than I am
catching COVID. Right, and there's a football game is a bigger risk. There's way bigger risks to catching COVID than a football game. Okay, you know what? And what really pisses me off, and we don't know the long-term effects. You know what you do know the long-term effects of? Brain trauma.
Yeah.
And CTE and concussions.
Yeah. But they don't give a shit about that, right? You don't see them coming out and saying, we got to make sure that their safety.
Right.
Like, you would think, right, if it was that big of a concern for them, not until they found a helmet or something that they would let games go on.
We're not playing until this is But no, you know what you do? Things still went on. Yeah, you improved protocols and you improved testing, and you had impact testing. And yes, if they had any symptoms, you held them out. Sure, you took greater precautions, the same as you could have done with COVID.
Right.
You take greater precautions. You have better testing. You have your system, and you let it go to work.
Yep. And there's things that you can do. I mean, you look at the NFL and what they're doing, and I think the NFL sent out a league-wide email to all the players that said, if your ass is found in a nightclub and doing that sort of thing, you're going to be suspended and you're going to be fined, and obviously you can't fine a college player, but you can take away things certainly, or you can suspend them. I mean, this is a time where you're giving these young men a chance to step up and be responsible, human beings and responsible adults, and realize that you're going to have to make sacrifices in life, especially if you want to play football. And if that means that, you don't get to go to the frat party or you don't get to go to the bars,
right.
well, in order to play football, then that's what you have to do. So they took I think a moment in time that could have been a real learning experience and teaching experience for these young men, and basically just, said, nope.
Yeah, well, that's the frustrating thing is hey, Scott Frost and Bill Moose and they're asking their student athletes, okay, we need you to do these certain things so we can play, and they adhered to those things through the last couple months being on campus and training. And then you tell them, we abide by everything, we're doing everything you asked me to, but then some guy says, that's not good enough. It's very, very frustrating because if Kevin Warren would have came out and said, listen, you know what? We are absolutely scared to death of getting sued.
Right.
Hey, sure, great, okay,
right.
Fine. But the player safety thing,
right.
Don't fill me full of that. Because you know what? You know what's even worse? Yeah, let's move it to the spring, but we want you to play 20 to 24 games in a calendar year.
What a joke.
I mean,
he knows that's not possible.
No,
knows
the spring football season is the dumbest.
Right.
People are like, oh, you can make it work.
Yeah.
It's not going to work.
You can't.
It's not going to work, people. Quit thinking it is. It's not going to work.
Right.
And everybody I talk to that's played football, it's not going to work.
Yeah, it's a joke that they even presented that. I think that's what kind of set me off, went over the edge, was when he presented that to people, and it's like, who are you trying to fill that bullshit? Who are you sending that out to? Because I know, anyone who knows football knows that can't be done, especially then if you're talking about safety as the big reason for canceling this 2020 season. It can't be done. And let's say even if it could, the best players aren't going to play.
Right.
The best players want to go to the NFL.
Correct.
Right. The draft. I mean, shit. We always, when I was at school, we played usually the last game of the season, which was in January sometime. It was barely enough time to get ready for the April draft, or your pro day, which was, sometime in March, or if you were going to the combine, in February.
Right.
It's not that easy just to come out of a full season and then be ready to go again in what, 3 weeks, 2 weeks? What do you need? I mean, give me a break.
Right. There's too much, and Scott nailed this on the head, and I applaud Scott for everything he said, because finally in this situation, someone's come up and brought up reasons why something needs to happen instead of finding reasons why we can't.
Right.
And that's wearing me out in all this. It's always, we focus on the very, very small percentages of things on why we can't do something. Right. I always liken it to, it's like someone's like, you want to go play golf tomorrow? There's a 30% chance of rain.
Right.
Well, there's a 70% chance it's not going to rain.
Right. Yeah.
I'm tired of finding reasons why we can't do something.
Right.
We have so much more information now, and there's too many excuses. There's so many excuses I'm out of running out of words for it, because it's I'm just over it. I'm over the excuses. There's so many more reasons why you should be able to do something than why you can't.
Well, I mean, there was a lot of people that thought, when you looked at just the way that in the sports media, the way that it was COVID was being presented, especially college football sports media people, that they, from the start, they were giving off this vibe that they did not want the college football season to happen. Mm-hmm. Why? Because, political reasons, because they wanted our entire society to look like it is completely out of control, right? So it's a black eye on Trump, right? So you're hearing a lot of that stuff, and like, why is the NFL able to do it? Why can the NFL, right? I mean, if NCAA and college football, it's not like they're playing for chump change. No. Do you know what I mean?
They're playing for business. This is just as much money.
Right. I mean, the NFL owns Sunday, college football owns Saturday, and a lot of other days during the week, that it's turned into. But it's, that was the one thing I think that you always loved about sports was that there were no political influences really, but you look at the Big Ten and it's a lot of liberal schools and it's a lot of, the same cities where they're having a lot of, the social issues and stuff. So, it's hard to ignore those things, right?
It makes you go,
Yeah.
It makes you go, Yeah. Because we know as of right now, as of Wednesday, August 12th at 2:43 p.m. in the afternoon, the ACC, the Big 12, the SEC, I think the American Athletic Conference, and maybe one more, I'm maybe forgetting. Right. They're planning on playing.
Yeah.
Now they've adjusted some stuff. They pushed things back, which I still can't believe the Big Ten just can't say we're going to push this back. We don't need to start after Labor Day. Why can't we push this back to September? Buy yourself some more time
to give your plan. Who's to say a vaccine doesn't come out in a week or two?
Well, who's to say that? Who's to say it's going to be any better? This thing ain't going away.
Right.
This thing isn't going away by spring. This thing isn't ever going away.
I just said this to Foreman. I said, Jay Foreman, I said, do you know what the reality is? And the thing that's so upsetting is when 2021 rolls around, if you think that this thing is going to be done and finished, you're wrong.
Right.
You're wrong. And you're going to have let an entire year go by where financially it's going to be loss after loss after loss after loss. And you're going to be probably in the same situation 1 year from now, too.
Right.
So what are you going to do? Just keep canceling, seasons? You can't do that.
Yeah, it's not going away. So you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. You have to get on and move on. And that's just, again, the excuses. You're always trying to find some reason why you can't do something.
Right.
Let's find reasons why we can do something. And I will applaud. And who knows, 3-4 weeks from now, who knows if the Big 12 ACC are actually going to play. We don't know.
Right.
But if they do, and the look that happens to the Big 10 and the Pac-12, I'm hoping it happens. I really, really do. Because you are going to look,
and that they get through it without any major incidents
issues.
and
you caused all this economic hardships not only on your universities but these cities that they're living in.
Yeah.
We haven't even got into this. And Scott brought it up on Monday. If I am, the wrestling, men's golf, men's baseball, I am really concerned right now at Nebraska and at majority of these other schools.
Yeah.
Men's hockey at some of these other Big Ten schools, because I don't have the Big Ten numbers, but I do know at Nebraska, there's only 3 sports that make money: football, women's volleyball, and women's volleyball. And Nebraska is one of I don't even know, maybe 2 or 3 schools in the nation that make money on volleyball.
Yep.
And it's not a ton; it might be $1 million bucks. And men's basketball, the rest costs money.
Yep.
If you don't play any football this fall, something's going to. People are going to lose jobs. They've already made budget cuts.
Yeah.
People are going to lose jobs. I don't know. I don't know if you can just say, hey, men's baseball and men's golf, you got to take a couple years off. We're not getting rid of program, but the downturn, the domino effect, what that's going to do to your programs, recruiting.
Yeah.
Facilities. Just trying to develop and grow as a program to get better. It's just it is it's immediate impact, but what we're going to see 2-3 years down, 4 years down the road from this is going to be catastrophic, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping whatever we see is Nebraska playing in a different conference anyway. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I try to think back to when, you know, the whole Big Ten thing was coming, and I know, you know, things in the Big 12 when we left, there was a lot of like hatred build up with Texas, and you know, you got to remember it was the Big 12 championship game with the whole second thing, and everybody just had a really, really bad taste in their mouth. And yeah, you go back to the history of the Big 12, and it's always been, you know, it seemed like the conference was always more suited towards, you know, the southern teams, you know, the Texas teams, and because Nebraska was so successful, and when a lot of the voting happened, you know, even the teams from the north that weren't named Nebraska were voting whatever was opposite of what Nebraska was voting, because they were trying to level the playing field a little bit. But I just think at the end of the day, I think we tried the Big Ten. I just think that we're probably more of a Big 12 school. If there's a window, I think it's something that probably Scott and those guys have already started to explore to see if that's possible. I think our recruiting base is probably better if we're in the Big 12, you know, with Texas and Oklahoma and all those schools, those states down there. But you know, this thing, and with Kevin Warren, has really just kind of, you know, and seeing even some of like the former Big Ten players come out, the Desmond Howards, and you know, I know Howard Griffith is on the BTN, but you know, there's been some other players that have also kind of like towed the company line. And even, you know, with the comments like that Desmond, you know, has said, it's like, you know, hey, Des, like, your guy, Harbaugh, he wants to play.
Right, bud.
He wants to play.
He came out with an announcement the same day. He just didn't say it. You know, that's what's funny, because now we're doing this, and Ryan Day. It's my golf mind. Ryan Day has come out and said, we're exploring to play in the fall.
Yeah, which was so surprising to hear, because Gene Smith had already kind of...
Right, and this is like what puzzles me, because when you have such vindication from your coaches that they want to play and do this, and they're willing to go out, and you're willing to have Scott make these like talk like that is, it's like, you know, things don't make sense. Right. That they are hearing things, you know,
almost like they're being told one thing and then they're hearing something else.
And we are very fortunate at Nebraska that Bill Moose, Ronnie Green, Governor Ricketts were all on the same page. Yeah. Governor, president, AD, coach, we're all on the same page that we want to play, and we agree that it's safe for our players to play. And we understand, and Scott hit all those reasons. We know players are better in a structured environment in where, and you hit it, like, you know, you got to take care of, you have to do those things right so you can play. If not, you're going to go, you know, you're going to be stuck in a dorm room for 10 days. Right. And that sounds terrible.
And we know, like, they're getting tested like pretty much every single day, I think, and they're on top of that stuff. Like, if it truly is about safety, right, and safety of players, I don't know necessarily if playing football increases your chances of catching COVID, as opposed to being, you know, in a classroom full of you know, 20 or 30 other students that you don't know where they were the night before. You don't know what they were doing, but I can tell you, I know what the guy who's lined up to me was doing. You know, he was at home, same place where I was. You know, and the coaches are able to keep track of that stuff. But if it was really about that, then these presidents, they would come out and say, you know what? There are no students on campus.
100%.
No students on campus. But you know why they're not going to do that? Because they love those $60,000 checks that parents have to write each year for their kids to go to school. Right. And the reality is, it doesn't matter whether they're on campus or
online.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right.
There's that money still coming in. Yeah. That's what's interesting. The whole liability thing. If a student contracts it, can't they sue the university?
I don't see how that's any different.
How is it any different? And you want to talk about contact tracing? That was a big thing. Yeah. You know, they want to say, if you play a game, like, how do you know, like, who is around touching? It's like, so and so gets it in class, like, okay, now you know he has this class, but who the hell? I mean, he could have been at a frat party night before or this time.
Right.
Like, that the whole contact tracing thing is like, I mean, that's you
Well,
want to follow that. You're not gonna be able to like even functionalize as a society anymore because it's you can't, like, it's impossible.
Well, even with time, like with the time that we feel like they kind of forfeited by coming out now and saying that we're not going to play. In that time, I would say that there was probably a better chance of them coming up with a test that could give them like an immediate result. And while I mentioned test. The testing has been a joke anyway.
Right.
I mean, you have stories from everywhere of people getting phone calls that didn't even take the test. Maybe they signed up for the test, but then somebody is calling them saying, you and your wife or you and your girlfriend, you both tested positive.
Yeah,
like, really? Because we didn't take the freaking test.
Or the false positives and all this stuff. Like,
I know. So, like, they have a lot to clean up, but I just think that they just kind of jumped the gun here, and now it's going to be I don't even want to say like a trickle down effect. It's going to be massive, like the consequences and the economic impact that this thing is going to have on especially, the small town, like Lincoln's and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a bad deal. It is a really bad deal.
It's bullshit.
And I think
that's what it comes
right,
down to.
It is bullshit. And it was I think so much more could have been done, and it just wasn't.
Yeah.
There's so much more could have been done, and this is like, I just don't understand why the rush? Why the rush to cancel now? Why? You could have pushed it back a whole nother month. A whole nother month. You could say we're gonna pause practices. And that's the whole thing too, is like, it's limited to pads because they don't know. It's like BS. They're still doing one-on-ones and doing position, like around those guys sweating. Like, give me a break.
Right.
Like, they're still doing drills. Like, just because you put on shoulder pads, now you, like, come on, guy. Like, I mean, listen, I was born, but not yesterday.
I just think it's all been bullshit though, Jay. Like, even though they came out last night and stated that the Big Ten is not going to play, the Pac-12 had come out the day before, right? I believe it was the day before, but then all you heard was how the Pac-12 and the Big Ten were always going to do whatever. So they actually, the Big Ten didn't even need the extra day. They just wanted a day to themselves, I'm sure, where they could be the focus. But this decision was made not at the last hour, not trying to scramble to figure out maybe there is some last minute thing that we've overlooked or that we just it hasn't been presented to us. Something that you would do normally if something was important to you. Like, if something's real important to me, I'm not going to pull the plug ASAP. Like, they're going to have to be like, hey, Jason, we need an answer now. Like, the thing started, a day ago, and you're still trying, hope, crossing your fingers that something's going to happen. But that's what I mean. Like, the transparency has been just total garbage. Like, I think they probably had this decision made probably a few days ago.
I think when all the reports came out this weekend, when they paused, no pads, I think the decision was made.
Yeah.
I really do, which, again, why go through all the lengths of the schedule? 2.5 hour, he gets up there, I'm sure he loves being in his little home office, all his plaques and bullshit, newspaper articles about himself behind it,
Well, like, again, I know, I noticed that. It's like,
geez Louise.
I know. It's not like you got, Super Bowl trophies or something. You got your diplomas. I know.
I mean, what's going to be interesting, too, if he really does care about player safety and all this, his son plays football at Mississippi State.
Yeah.
He better be opting out.
Yeah.
If not,
that's going to be a bad look.
Yeah.
It's going to be a bad look. I mean, I think his clock's ticking already because this is not going to be something like we had said that's going to be fixed, in a matter of a month and you're moved on to, the next issue. I think this is the issue for a while. And then even talking about, like we were talking about the timeline of them knowing, again, it comes down to, I think, covering their own ass. And when you mentioned, the players and the coaches having, where they're stopping practice, they had them stop practice, right? Because God forbid somebody gets hurt while they already know that there's not going to be any games. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
it's a liability issue all of a sudden again, and it's just.
Was he an attorney in like a previous life or earlier in his life?
I believe so.
Probably.
I mean, it seems like it. It's wild. I know you got to get out of here soon. Again, appreciate your taking the time. This was an unfortunate podcast. We had hammered out. I'm glad you're able to join me. I mean, it's again, we hit it. It's nothing makes sense.
Yeah.
I hope Nebraska is able to put something together somehow, some way, with something in play. I hope multiple Big Ten schools are Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan. They can put something together to play. Hell, play those four. Iowa, play those four schools.
Yeah.
And maybe you can throw in a NDSU and something. I don't know. Something, some way. And I mean, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, not a doctor. I don't know what the lingo is in the Big Ten contract, but it seems to me we're in a year where, I mean, I would consider this more like an act of God.
Right.
What's the lingo? Is it kind of null and void and something like this? Where like, I mean, if you really wanted to kind of save your conference, Kevin Warren, be like, hey, you know what? You got my blessing in this situation. We want to do what's best, but we understand that you need to do what's best for your town and your university. Go do what you can do. You have our blessing to go do something.
Right. Yeah. But
if you are a true man of you want what's best for this conference.
Right. But he
just said
down.
He said no. They go out there and not part of the Big Ten.
Right. Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see what's come down in the next 24, 48 hours.
Maybe the next time we talk, we'll be a
member of the Big 12. I don't know.
Old member of the Big 12 again. Who knows?
It's unfortunate, folks. It really is. It's frustrating that you can't get the true answers, and but it is what it is. And hopefully, the next time we talk, something's put together. I'll have to figure out my game plan because I know my whole game plan for this fall and with this podcast is totally changed. I was planning on doing a post game review and then a pregame, preview of the next opponent. I hope maybe there's gonna be 5 to 6 games. Who knows? But until then, we'll have to figure out. Maybe we can break down some old 96, 97 games. Yeah. And get you and Foreman together and pull some games on YouTube and just.
And I think we got a lot of Oklahoma fans, so I think you're going to see kind of Norman of the North up here. Lincoln maybe turn into
if the Big 12 plays, I mean, you got to find someone to root for because I'm not a big NFL guy. I love college football. I mean, I can watch college football all day. NFL, it's like I can watch it for here and there. Yep. But it just doesn't do it for me.
Yep, I'm the same way.
The energy's just not there. The passion energy is just not there.
Yep.
But that's what we got, folks. We kind of laid it out there. Obviously, everyone's pissed off and frustrated and wants answers. And we deserve answers because we're not getting the real answers. And you don't have to be a lawyer, doctor, or whatever to figure those out. Any normal human being can figure that this doesn't make sense. So thanks for listening in. Next time we talk, we'll have a little more fun and hopefully have some better news from you. But thanks to JP and myself, Jay Moore. We're out of here.